Well, it's been long enough. It's time for me to put another updated mock draft out there. Golly, time goes by too quickly. We're less than a month from the draft, and I feel so wholly and completely unprepared for it. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. So anyways, you can check out all 32 picks of this one-round mock in the description box below. We've had some changes since the last one. A couple of teams have made trades that have led to the addition or subtraction of first-round picks. And the Colts traded away the 13th pick to get DeForest Buckner from the 49ers. So now the 49ers are picking 13 and 31, which you'd assume is either one of two things. It's going to put them in a position to maybe move up into the top 10 if they really, really covet somebody, or they use that pick at 13 for somebody, maybe a wide receiver that they need. And then that pick at 31, they potentially look at peeling out of there. I don't know. Be interesting to see what happens. The Vikings traded away Stephon Diggs to the Bills. The Bills give up their first-round pick to the Vikings. Now they've got 2 first-round picks and a whole bunch of issues on their roster. As we go into the next couple of weeks, I'll have more mock drafts that will include more picks, etc. One thing I find really interesting is, much as we talk about the importance of draft pick currency, and as important as it is, we talk about the need to accumulate draft pick capital and utilize the draft pick capital and get young talent on manageable rookie deals. A lot of teams sure feel awfully willy-nilly now to trade away first-round picks for proven commodities, which makes me wonder if some front offices and organizations are kind of looking at the impact of this COVID-19 crap and how it could delay off-season activities and mini camps, OTAs, training camps, and saying, we want veteran-proven players because there's less development there. We just have to get them caught up with our system, whereas opposed to a rookie, you got to develop them and get them accustomed to your system. It's just interesting, that's all. As far as the mock, you still got Joe Burrow going #1 to Cincinnati. Feels like this is pretty much a done deal, but crazier things have happened, but it certainly feels like it's a done deal at this point. We got to start calling him Joe Exotic, don't we? Or Joe Tiger. The Redskins at #2 are probably where it gets a little more interesting. I still feel like the pick is Chase Young, but it might not be. Doesn't have to be. They could take an Arizona Cardinals route, and they may go quarterback here, and they might try to flip Haskins around. But I would be surprised if that would happen, especially since Daniel Snyder is a Dwayne Haskins fan. It feels like Ron Rivera would be seeking an impact player on defense. Their Nick Bosa, if you will. I don't know if Chase Young is Nick Bosa or not, or if he's a little bit better Nick Bosa or not yet. But it certainly makes sense for them to take a guy there, even though they already have some talent on the defensive line with Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne, Matt Ioannidis. You still got Montez Sweat and Ryan Kerrigan. You feel like there's a glut there, but man, oh man, potentially generational talents like Chase Young are really, really hard to pass up on. Where it maybe gets a little interesting in my mock is #3, where I have the Chargers trading up from 6 to 3 instead of the Dolphins trading up from 5 to 3. I look at this and I say the Chargers have got to find a young quarterback for the future that they could build around. They could potentially sell some tickets there in LA. They've got to. I can't imagine you're going into 2020 with just Tyrod Taylor and nothing else planned out for the future. It doesn't mean that they have to trade up to 3 to get a quarterback. It doesn't even mean that Herbert's their guy. Could be Tua. Could be Jordan Love. Could be somebody else like a Jalen Hurts a little bit later in the draft. But they need somebody. And they have to have somebody. After all those years of Phillip Rivers, you got to prepare yourself for the future. And Tyrod Taylor is not going to be that dude for that long. Give me a break. He's not that dude now. Why Herbert over Tua? I don't know. I'm sorry. I find it hard to believe that all these NFL teams are going to be willing to dump potentially a top 5 pick into Tua with his injury history, coming from the system he did at Alabama, with all the talent that he had around him, some of the flaws I think that he has in his game. There's just something about Tua, man. It's like taking him with a top 5 pick is awfully damn risky, even more risky than it normally would be for a quarterback. Because when you look at the hip injury that he had, and other guys that have had that hip injury, Bo Jackson, Dennis Pitta, it was a career changer. There's a lot to risk on a quarterback taking him in the top 5, which I still think the Dolphins may end up doing, but I do not think it is out of the realm of possibility that Tua ends up being the 4th quarterback drafted. I know, I'll be clowned. It may very well be wrong, but just a feeling, okay? Just a feeling. The Giants at 4, I think it's going to be one of the offensive tackles. It could be Isaiah Simmons, but I think it's going to be one of the offensive tackles. Detroit at 6, Okudah, Isaiah Simmons. Feels like you can't really go wrong in either way. Maybe a Derrick Brown also could be in the mix there. But for them, Carolina at 7 with Simmons, like any of those 3 guys, Okudah, Simmons, or Derrick Brown feels like a really, really good fit for either one of those 2 teams. Arizona, I know, has invested some in the offensive line, but you can invest some more. Tristan Wirfs, the offensive tackle from Iowa, you could maybe even think about sliding him inside to guard, whatever the case might be. You still want to protect Kyler Murray. You want to get better on that offensive line. Maybe the first real shocking pick you would see is me having Henry Ruggs going in the top 10 to the Jaguars. You might say, well, why wouldn't they take Jordan Love, or why wouldn't they take Derrick Brown? I think this is more so of where receiver is certainly a need for the Jags. Especially if they want to give Minshew a shot in 2020. My thing is that Ruggs ran in the 4.2s. And he certainly is a better prospect than John Ross was a couple of years ago. As a result, if John Ross can go 9th overall to the Bengals, Henry Ruggs, the 3rd, certainly could go in the top 10. Again, maybe wrong, but somebody's going to fall in love with that speed and see the impact a guy like a Tyreek Hill can have on an NFL offense and say, we want to have that. And when you talk about a Ruggs compared to some of these other guys, what would differentiate him would be pure quickness, explosive top-end speed. So if there was a wide receiver to go in the top 10 right now, I feel it very possibly could be him. But Cleveland in the spot at 10 of looking offensive line or defensive line. Derrick Brown would be really hard to pass on at 10. I know you're still going to say there's a need on offensive line, and there certainly is. This offensive tackle class is a lot better than the defensive tackle class. If you can get Derrick Brown at 10, then you get him. So leaves Becton at 11 for the Jets, and at 12, it's the marriage that feels like it's made in heaven, isn't it? CeeDee Lamb, Las Vegas Raiders. Like if there was one of these things, if you looked at this draft and you said there were certain players that it just feels perfect if they go there. A lot of people are going to say Joe Burrow to the Bengals. A lot of people will probably say Tua to the Dolphins. Then some people might say Chaisson to the Redskins. But if I was to look at it, like a perfect combination of so many different factors, CeeDee Lamb is that dude. CeeDee Lamb with the Raiders makes a world of sense. It addresses their number 1 need. It's right place on the board to take them. Like it just feels perfect. Even more perfect if they take Jordan Love at 19, which I haven't been doing in this mock. Boy, that would get interesting. But I would expect wide receivers. You'll start to see several go in round 1, maybe 5, maybe 6, but maybe in some cases they'll be hurt a little bit because the class is perceived to have really good depth that teams are going to take a pass on wide receivers and they're going to drop, which create a real bounty of guys available in rounds 2 through 4 because they're trying to get high-end players at other positions with lesser quality of talent at the top and lesser depth overall. In terms of things that would maybe stand out a little bit, maybe be surprising, maybe not, the Raiders taking a quarterback at 19 may be surprising, may not be. The rumors about them wanting to trade Derek Carr, I don't think were just smoke. There was certainly something to them, and I do think that makes sense. Carr's been there for 6 seasons now. How much have you really won with him? You're talking about you want to build still for the next 7 to 8 years. Do you really want to tie yourself to Derek Carr, ultimately the quarterback from a previously failed administration? It's a valid question. Eventually, guys, unless it's a really proven, true deal franchise, borderline elite or elite type of guy, you want to get your own quarterback there because it's one of the most important decisions you can make as a general manager. It's one of the most important positions in any sport, certainly the most important position in North American professional sports. If you're going to ride and die with that position in the NFL, then you want to at least make sure that you contributed to the decision of putting the guy in place that makes that possible. Plus, when you talk about being able to get a guy like a Jordan Love and have him on a rookie contract, he's a guy that you can bring in. You don't have to play him right away, which is probably an ideal situation for him, treating a Derek Carr similar to what the Chiefs did with Alex Smith, one of those, hey, this guy's nice, and you can get to a certain point, but you will not get all the way with him. This is the type of guy that has the upside and the talent that if you work on it, could potentially get you there. And you're probably going to see one or two teams envision him being that type of guy. Maybe somebody like the Chargers would envision this as well. But again, I will put this mock in the description box below. You can tell me how terrible it is. I'll be back next week with a 2 or 3 round edition. Until then, I'll see you later.